Dreamers Welcome Podcast.
Dreamers Welcome Podcast. We are back in the building, ladies and gentlemen. I go by CEO PESO, blessed and highly favored. We have a amazing, special person that is an inspiration to me. I had to save it for the intro. I probably gave 1,000, 2,000 views, 3 on his YouTube videos. I got introduced to him a long time ago. He did a Smack DVD breakdown. Shouts out to Smack. He worked with artists that I have literally looked up to, grown up with. I named my son after Jim Jones, Capo, and he was a part of that, which was a big deal to me. Capo, shouts out to my son and Jim Jones. And man, I am blessed to have one half of the dynamic duo, man. Heatmakerz, Rsonist. Thank you so much for sitting with me, man. How you feeling?
I'm good, man. Thank you for reaching out, man.
Man, the pleasure's all mine, bro. Man, so, man, I don't even know where to start, man. I got so many questions, man. It's a blessing to be able to interview the guy that, DipSet Anthem, man. I wish my boy was here. Like, that record set so many tones for us. I know a lot of people bring that record up, but it was such a big deal to communities everywhere. Y'all did it, man. So, first and foremost, man, just for a background for people who might not be familiar with you, who you are, where you from, your upbringing, man, and let's just tap into the early side real quick.
Well, I was born in Jamaica. I came to the States when I was 4 years old. Grew up in the Bronx, and so you could my music is kind of a combination of both, man. Like being Jamaican, growing up in the Bronx, and just kind of not having any musical training, just kind of making music based off of feel. So the feel that you hear in the music is a combination of Jamaica and the Bronx combined, and just that whole, if you could picture that environment. Anybody from the Bronx knows that the Bronx is half Jamaican anyway, or half Caribbean anyway, so I think my music is Caribbean based, even though I don't necessarily make I don't make traditional Caribbean music, but I think I kind of blend hip hop and Caribbean music together. If you listen to like my drum program and the way I attack music, but to let you know who I am, I'm a kid from Jamaica that grew up in the Bronx and loved making music and was heavily influenced by reggae music.
Oh man, question. So you say you moved from Jamaica at 4. So have you been back? I assume since then, like visiting.
Yeah, but years ago, I haven't been back to Jamaica in years.
Okay, so I asked that because as 4 years old, do you still, like, my memories of a youngin is like blurry sometimes for where I was born and raised. So do you still have memories of like before you moved?
Not of Jamaica itself, not of like memories of me in Jamaica, but my family is so. My whole family is like Jamaican, if that makes sense. Like my family's not Americanized, so Jamaica came with us. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, as far as like Jamaica, the place, I don't have vivid memories of things I did when I was in Jamaica, but my family, like I said, my family brought Jamaica here. So it's like, it's kind of like I grew up in Jamaica anyway. My household was a Jamaican household. And I know this is going to sound crazy. I didn't know nothing about hip hop until like my second year of high school. All I listened to was reggae music or country music, because my father used to listen to country music all the time, like Kenny Rogers and shit like that. But yeah, man, I grew up listening to nothing but Garnet Silk, Beres Hammond, Bob Marley. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sanchez.
I mean, essentially all that has an influence still on hip hop. But second year of high school, that mean you was like 16, 15?
Yeah, about 15, because I just turned 15 because I started high school a little early. But yeah, so when I got to high school, the friends that I was around, they were into hip hop. And I remember one of my friends said that he could DJ better than me. And at that time, I never DJed before in my life, but I was so competitive. I went out and got turntables and practiced and got nice. And then that's how I got into hip hop music, was because I started DJing around that time. So the first album I ever bought, hip hop album, was Wu-Tang 36 Chambers.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask that too. I did the research and I seen that DJing was a thing. So that all started just from a competitive conversation.
Yeah, that's how I am. Like, I'm the type that if somebody challenges me to do something, then I try to do it, and I feel like I'm not as good as I could be, I become obsessed with it. You know what I mean? Kind of like,
Same
but
here.
producing was kind of like that because my first couple beats that I made, I think were terrible. And then it just became a thing where I had to learn how to get better. Like I just wanted to be better than other people, not to shit on anybody, but just because I felt like whatever I try to do, I have to master it in my own way. You know what I'm saying? I've always been like that. No matter what it is, not only do I want to do it, but I want to look good doing it
No,
and be nice at it at the same time. You understand?
I understand. I did that with videography. I had to do it myself, shoot my own video. I don't even rap before I even stepped out and said I'm a videographer. But with you saying that though, I had somebody ask me this, and it was interesting because now you have people who YouTube University is like the way to go if you don't have to, go to school or anything like that. So, but back when you was learning to DJ, how was you learning? It like, what I mean? It wasn't so simple to just look something
No,
up.
it wasn't. It was more trial and error. And to me, that's why I think before technology really got crazy as far as like, internet and social media and things of that nature, more people had their own style because you couldn't learn from nobody else. You kind of had to figure it out on your own. And in doing that, you learned your own style. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was shooting videos, whatever it was, you learned your own style because you didn't have YouTube to rest on and say, all right, cool, let me see how somebody does this or somebody does that. So back then, when people learned how to do things, it was kind of like you had to figure out your own way to do it because you didn't have too many people that knew how to make beats or knew how to DJ. It was a thing that you kind of had to figure out how to do, and in doing that, you figured out your own style. Now it's like, okay, cool. I'll go look at YouTube how to do this, and I'm not trying to knock anybody because I do it myself. When I got to learn how to do certain things now, I might go to YouTube. What's the fastest way to do this? What's the fastest way to do that? But when it comes to something creative, I never rest on YouTube because to me, I don't want to learn somebody else's way to do anything. I want to learn my way to do it. You understand? Like we both can have the same drum machine, same samples, but you're never going to sound like me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm never going to sound like you because the way you do things is not the way I do things. And that's not knocking either side. It's just to say I've developed my own way of doing things without YouTube or any type of tutorial. It's, if you want to call it the Heatmakerz tutorial, that's what it is. I learned from my own school of making music. So I just feel like that's the difference now. That's why you hear a lot of music that sounds the same because people look at somebody else's style and be like, okay, I know how to do that. And they'll watch a video of that person making a beat over and over again and pretty much mimic everything they do. And then now you have a carbon copy of that person.
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching your videos, I was doing that. I was mimicking.
But see, here's my thing. If it's a learning thing, I'm not mad at that.
Right.
But if it's something where you're gonna copy your whole style off of it, that's something else.
Yeah.
To me, if you just want to learn, okay, how did this person chop this sample and make it work like that? Or how did this person play the bass line like that? Whatever it is. If you pick up, like me as a producer, I've picked up tools off of other producers, but I don't mimic what they do. I just say, oh, that was interesting the way they did that. Now let me put my spin on it and do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So creativity is one of those things that when you try to follow the leader, sooner or later you become the leader, and then you don't have anybody to follow and you fall behind because you don't have your own way of making music.
Yeah.
You've been following people for so long.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I feel as if, if you are a person that, like you said, there's no knock to nobody, but if you are a person that's trying to learn and only mimic, like I feel like everything should always be sprinkled in with what you're trying to remix with it in a sense. Yeah, and that develops who you are and, how your craft can be different from, the person that you're trying to be, if that makes sense. Yeah. So when did, from DJing, when did production actually come into the start of that?
So I was DJing in college, and then I used to go to Howard University. I ended up getting kicked out of college. And when I came home, I had a baby on the way, and I had no income, no job, no nothing. And my homeboy that lived up the block, who ended up becoming my business partner and production partner, my man Thriller, he had bought an MPC, and he was going out of town. So I asked him if I could hold the MPC and just kind of, fuck around. And I made two bullshit beats, and I'm giving you the short version of the story. Made two bullshit beats. Ended up meeting a guy by the name of Todd Terry. He ended up buying the two bullshit beats from me for one artist that he had. And he asked me for more. I said, I don't got equipment. he believed in me, I guess, off of those two bullshit beats and bought me $30,000 worth of equipment. And I've been off to the races ever since. And, Todd Terry's still a close friend of mine. So I just believe everything happens for a reason, man. Like, I would have never ended up in music if not for his generosity at the time. You know what I mean? Because at that time, I didn't have two fucking pennies to rub together, let alone buy equipment, so him believing in somebody he just met one time and spending 30,000 on is like, that gave me all the motivation I needed to kind of keep moving. Because if somebody could believe in me more than I believed in myself, I had to start believing in myself more at that point.
Yeah, and that's rare. I mean, back then, 30 G's was like crazy.
Like, yeah, but if you ever met Todd Terry, and I had to realize who he was after like knowing him for a little while, I'm like, yo, who is this dude? How could he just spend 30,000 and this, that, and the third? And then I started to really understand his background and what he meant to music and what he meant to house music and how he was the first to do a lot of things. And like, I mean, not to put his business out, the Todd been getting paid for a long time, man.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Is he a producer as well, right?
Long time. Like, he's the first. And I hope he don't mind me saying this, but it's just a fact. He's the first person in the music industry with real money that I ever hung around. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. You can get all this from music. Like, he showed me what was possible without him even knowing he was showing me what was possible.
Right. So with that type of investment, and like you said, you just got kicked out. You had your blessing on the way, but I know that was a crazy mental time. And just, going from, as you said, here go two bullshit beats and you got some bread for it. And he came back with an investment like that. Was it any type of like pressure that you truly felt that was like, man, I can't fuck this up?
Well, yes, but it was needed pressure. Like, I work well when I know that the odds are almost against me. You know what I mean? Like I told you, when I become obsessed with something, I'm the type that like I become over obsessed to the point where I'm not going outside. Like, after he bought me that equipment, I spent months in the crib. Like, I went out to grab some food and come back and wake up, brush my teeth, make music, grab something to eat, come back, make music, chill, maybe watch a little TV to get my mind off music, then back to making music. I did that nonstop for at least 18 months. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So by the time that 18 months was up, I had records like, I mean, this is before they were sold. I had records like DipSet Anthem, I'm Ready, More Than Music. Like, I just had so much good shit because, like I said, I just locked myself in and just made music the way I felt it should be made. I had no musical training. I had no musical background. I just knew what felt right. Right. So when you listen to like Diplomatic Community, those are beats that was made off of me trying, like, trial and error and just trying to create a feeling, not even a sound. You know how some people ask me like, yo, how did you create your sound? Anybody that tells you there's a formula for it, they lying to you. Like, you just kind of fall into your sound. You don't create it. It kind of just becomes you. You know what I mean? Like, to me, your process and the way you make music develops your sound, or the way you do anything. Like right now, like you do your interviews a certain way. That's going to be your style of interviewing. Right. Whether you know it or not, you're creating your style of interviewing just because you're doing things in a certain order. Okay, cool. When I interview somebody, I do this type of research. The camera looks like this. My background looks like this. It's your style you're developing. You didn't probably give it a lot of thought. You're just doing you. You know what you like. Feeling, yeah. Right. So it's the same thing with me, man. So around that time, it wasn't really pressure. It was just me saying, okay, cool. If other people can do it, I know I can do it at a high level. Right. I just know that about myself. Like, if I can't do something, it's because I'm not into it. And I'm not really applying myself to do it. But I believe that there's nothing that I can't do if I apply myself. Right. And it was the same with music.
So even because you saying that, I want to ask, was it hard to shift away from, the pursuit of DJing and then this new passion of producing coming about?
Not really, because what I loved about DJing was being able to control what a crowd did, right? And if we're going back to the foundation of, like, there's DJing, and then to me above DJing is production, because what I make is what the DJ plays. right? So to me, that's the ultimate form of controlling the crowd.
Right.
It's almost like you can buy the box macaroni and cheese, or you can make it from scratch. You know what I'm saying? Like it just depends on. To me, I would rather be the dude that makes the music from scratch. This way, when I see the crowd moving, I know I did that.
You created,
yeah. You know, as a DJ, yeah, you're creating the mood, but you didn't make that record. You're playing somebody else's idea. You just know how to string those records together correctly to kind of keep the crowd going. But to me, when you make records that a DJ can play back to back, and it's like you're moving the crowd with creations that came out of your head, it's a different feeling. Like I remember being in clubs and seeing the crowd go crazy to DipSet Anthem, and knowing that I made that in my mother's basement was like it's a surreal feeling, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I wish I was in New York when y'all was playing that. Man, we gonna bounce around since you brought up DipSet Anthem, man. And like I said, I know you get asked this a million times, bro, but just from you being my inspiration, it's just amazing to be able to ask you this. How the fuck did you flip that quick part? Like, did you even know the construction of how you was gonna do it?
No, and I don't, and I'll be real with you. I don't know the construction of any beat I'm gonna do before. Like even when I hear the sample, I know there's sounds in there that'll make something great. But to me, it's almost like somebody gave me a box with puzzle pieces. And that puzzle can be put together 100 different ways, but you have to find the most fluid way to put that puzzle together, right? Yeah. So with DipSet Anthem, I remember hearing the beginning, the big horns, and I'm like, yo, this is dope. How do I keep this feeling going for 2.5, 3 minutes on a record without making it sound, repetitive? And I remember I did it one way first, and honestly, I'll be real with you, the way that triggering came about, that was an accident. That was me trying different things. And I remember I had on the MPC, there's a button called note repeat, right? So if you hold down a pad, it repeats the note, whether it's, whatever timing you have it on, it'll repeat the note at that pace. And I remember I had that button down and my finger hit the pad by accident, and it made that almost like that melody. And I'm like, well, that sounds kind of dope. And for like 5 to 10 minutes, I was trying to figure out how to make that melody myself that I made by accident. And when I finally caught it, I'm like, oh no, this is it. I just gotta, like, it's just, you hear certain things and like, I'm not gonna fuck with it anymore, because if I fuck with it anymore, I'm gonna ruin it. It was to the point that after I made the beat, it was so good that I didn't know if I liked it anymore. I'm like, am I bugging? Because that was like the 5th beat I made for the day, and I'm listening to it like, do I really like this, or do I just think I like it because I've been sitting in front of an MPC for the last 6 hours?
Yeah.
And honestly, right before I could turn off the power and not save the beat, my cousin came and heard it and told me like the shit was incredible. And that's probably the only reason why I saved that beat, because that beat was about to go in the trash if not for my cousin.
Yo, that is wild. Like if that beat went in the trash, bro.
Because here's the thing, man. Like I'm not one of those guys that thinks that everything I make is crazy. Like I almost, back then especially, I needed reassurance, because again, that was a trial and error time for me, like I was telling you before. So it was like I made things and it didn't sound like anything that was on the radio, so I didn't know if I was the one bugging or if it was really good or not.
And you're gonna be your worst critic just off of only having your own opinion and trying to create your own sound. Yeah.
Think back to what was on the radio around that time. Nothing sounded like DipSet Anthem. Nothing sounded like I'm Ready. Like these are records that I had to convince myself, this is special. Even though I don't hear anything on the radio that sounds like this, I know that this record is a feel that cannot be duplicated.
Yeah. Man.
Like even to this day, they still try to remix I'm Ready, and different people try to remake it and make it into a trap song or a drill song. You cannot mimic that original feeling. That original feeling is something certain records just cannot be. Like to me, Pete Rock's Reminisce. You can't play with certain records. Certain records, it is what it is, and it's a classic. You can't make it into a drill version. You can't touch it. It is what it is. And I think DipSet Anthem and I'm Ready are those type of records.
Now, and I'm Ready, because I was watching an interview you did, and just reassure this for me, but is that still one of your most proudest records you produced?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Like
definitely.
Even with, I guess from a fan standpoint, DipSet Anthem, that was like a you know, that curated my years as a youngin'. I mean, I was probably like 13 at the time when it came out, but and I'm Ready was just one of them album cuts. I was like, man, this shit crazy too. But I guess I'm not comparing it, but still, just from the success that you've seen with DipSet Anthem, I'm Ready still stands out.
Yeah, you got to remember, I'm Ready is the record that got me in the door. As far as like, that was the first record Dipset put out that made people aware of Heatmakerz. As far as like, yo, who the fuck made this beat? Because like I said, there was nothing on the radio that sounded like I'm Ready. So when that came out, it made people say, yo, who did that beat? So from that point, it was like people were paying attention. Then when DipSet Anthem hit, it was like, oh shit, these dudes is for real. You know what I mean? Because anybody can make one record that makes some noise and then don't follow up with shit. But we just kept firing record after record after record. So by the time people like looked up, they was like, yo, who the fuck are the Heatmakerz? Like these. And then after that, we, you know, after Dipset, we did Jewel's album. After Jewel's album, you know, we did a second Jewel's album, some Lil Wayne shit, and then a bunch of things in between. And I think that's when people realized, like, wait a minute, like, nah, okay, their sound translates past Dipset. You know what I'm saying? Because I think at one point people thought all we could make was Dipset records.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought too. But then I start, you know, just tapping in more. Like I said, I was following your production with artists and just when you was expanding out. So yeah, I definitely seen the elevation. So, well, okay, because you said something that just sparked the question. So you said that you was only listening to, you know, about hip hop. Well, that happened like freshman, sophomore.
So beginning of my sophomore year of high school.
Okay, so obviously the sampling come from, you know, whatever previous songs, 60s, 70s. So was that a genre of music you was already listening to as well, or like how did that?
Yeah, because my exposure to music came from like car rides with my father, right?
Right.
And my father, like I said, he would play country music, he played reggae music, he would play 70s soul. You know, at the time I didn't know the names of it, but certain records just sounded familiar to me because he would play like, let's just say he played the OJs. He would play an album cut. It wouldn't be the OJ single that everybody knew. Or if he played the Delphonics or whoever he played, I didn't know who these people were at the time. I just remember the music. So when it came time to sample, I sampled reggae first. And then after I kind of ran through all the reggae records that was in the crib, I'm like, I started taking some of my father's old soul cassettes and trying to sample, you know, so it was, I was just using what I knew. Like I said, from the car rides with my father, whatever stood out to me, I'm like, oh, I remember that record. He used to play it when we went here, when we did this. Or I remember this reggae record. My mother be playing it on Sundays when she's cooking or whatever it was. That was my exposure to music. I had no idea what the radio was playing. I didn't listen to the radio like that as a kid. And I know saying that now in the age that we're in with technology and somebody be like, God, I didn't listen to the radio. They probably think, yo, he's lying. It wasn't, I mean, and you know, I'm assuming you're probably 10 to 12 years younger than me. So when you came up, you kind of saw that the radio wasn't a thing that you heard every day unless you just was riding around in a car. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of heard what your friends was playing.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me. Whatever my family and friends played is what I heard. And I grew up around mostly my family members, like my close friends growing up with my cousins.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't really like I had a bunch of friends who had a bunch of different like their musical taste was different. My family listened to what I listened to, so we all listened to reggae music. And when hip hop came into play, we all kind of caught on at the same time. You know, video, well, from the Bronx, Video Music Box and things like that. So that was my introduction to music, man.
I get it, because if you got family that's playing, like you said, not just radio cuts, but the albums, like to me, it made like my brother's older than me, like 4 years, and he didn't really listen to the radio. That's when they was making burnt CDs and custom mixtapes.
Right, mixtapes and all that. Like our radio, was the mixtape. So
yeah,
whatever song was like DJ Clue or, you know, God Rest the Dead, K Slay, or even before that, you want to talk like Ron G and Kid Capri. And so those type of tapes, whatever they played is what I knew hip hop to be. The radio didn't like commercial. That's why when you hear my style of making music, it's not commercially driven. You don't hear a bunch of commercial records coming from Heatmakerz or commercially sounding records, because I didn't grow up on that. I grew up on the gritty album cuts Like MOP is my favorite rap group of all times. You know what I'm saying? Because to me, it's about energy. Like to me, they're the closest thing to hip hop rock that we have. They sound like a hip hop rock group. And I've always I'm a big fan of energy when it comes to music. If the energy is kind of like super laid back and and it's always like that, that's not my style of music. I like music that makes you feel like you want to do something, whether it's workout, whether it's think, whether it's work, whether it's whatever it is, music that triggers
Moves
something.
you.
I don't like music that's too laid back and just kind of forces you to just damn near fall asleep.
Yeah, I mean, some piece of inspiration has to be put into the music that you're making. I want to inspire others, like you said, whether it's workout, go get fly.
Music is communication, man. So if the music doesn't communicate with you, then it failed. On some level, it has to communicate with you.
Makes a lot of sense. Damn. Okay. So, diplomatic community, you got 11 placements on there, right? Okay. And I remember I seen a video. I did the research. Your first placement was with cannabis, and you had kind of said, basically like, y'all know it was a big deal, but it wasn't like a hype thing to you at the moment. So then the placement come with diplomats. Did that feel different from the first placement with cannabis? Because that was you said, I think it was
not to mention even the monetary side of it. I did 11 records and 11, my first check was 6 figures from DipSet.
Okay.
So monetarily was a huge difference. And when I did the cannabis record, our so-called manager at the time, he robbed us for some money. So me and my partner barely got any money off of that shit.
That was a learning experience.
It was a huge difference, man. We were more independent. The DipSet going, on the DipSet time around, we were independent as far as like it was no management involved. There was no extra hands in the pot. It was just Heatmakerz and DipSet.
Okay. So, and with that, how much of the business would you say that you learned after doing that with diplomats, even though it was just like brotherlyhood?
I learned, but honestly, man, like I learn every year. Like this music industry, because the rules of engagement changes damn near like every 7 years, it feels like. Because you got to remember, I came into the game where people were buying records out of record stores. So whatever I knew and I learned back then, my train of thought had to change because record stores are going down. We're talking about streams. We're talking about how many streams equal a sale. We're talking about you understand, like it's a different way to engage your audience, because when I was coming up, social media really wasn't a thing. Well, it was a thing, but it didn't control the music industry the way it does now. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, I learned a lot business-wise during the DipSet time, but I had to relearn everything because the rules of engagement changed when it came to how do you make money from music and how do you sustain a career from music.
Got it. So even with that, we, speaking of social media and just technology, a question to keep flying around, people using AI now for production. What's your take on it? What's your thoughts on that?
It depends on how you use it. If you're using AI to just make a beat and then you're trying to sell that, then that's kind of, to me, that's cheating. But like me being a guy that samples, if I use AI to make me a sample, I'm just I'm using the game to my advantage. You know what I mean? For years, I've paid thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, to clear samples over the years. You know what I mean? Like I've lost hundreds of thousands to percentages that I had to give up to people that own samples as far as just to use it. So if I can use AI to benefit me, to make me an original sample, make me an original soul sample, and then I can keep 100% of the proceeds, why wouldn't I do that? So to me, AI isn't going nowhere. And I used to be against it till I realized that it's either you get with it or sooner or later you get run over by it, right? Like it's one of those things that you can act like it don't exist, but it's the elephant in the room. So sooner or later you got to address it.
Right. Yeah. And that's the key point I want people to understand is like all of this scarcity of AI taking jobs and that dumb shit. It's just like, man, that's just another employee for you if you know how to work it.
And at the end of the day, you might want to figure out which jobs is taken. Like it might help you make your decisions in the future. Like turning a blind eye to certain things like that never made sense to me.
Yeah, I understand. So as far as with production and producers, it still goes on now, but $50 leases and everything like that. Like,
I hate that, by the way, man.
I'm about to say,
do you feel like producers are undervaluing themselves when they do stuff like that?
Of course. I mean, let's just think logically. How many beats do you have to lease at $50 a piece to sustain a lifestyle? Or you know what I mean? Like, you'll always be behind the eight ball. You understand? Like, to me, people that lease beats in general, I don't care what the price is, they don't understand how the music industry works. They don't understand how much money is made off of one song. They really don't get it. You're pretty much leasing a beat for $50 that if you sold to the right artist, that record could go on to make millions without even being a record that most people ever heard of. That's the point that people don't understand. Do you know how many artists I've met that you probably never heard of? I was hearing of for the first time, and these dudes are making 20, 30,000 a month off of streams. You understand what I'm saying to you? The point that I'm making is the industry is huge. So when you sell yourself short to lease a beat for $50, you're basically saying this is my value. How do you go from leasing a beat for $50 to now saying I want to charge this guy $10,000 for a track? They're gonna look at you like you're crazy. You were leasing beats last month for $50. You're a $50 producer. That's the stamp that you're putting on yourself when you do that. Like I don't understand why you would want to take your hard-earned time and make music only to sell it back for less than your electric bill. You understand? Like it doesn't make sense to me. But
yeah,
to each his own. Any producer I come across, I try to tell them that if they're doing that, they should stop it because the only people that it benefits are the people that own the sites and they're the middlemen. You understand? The person that doesn't make beats. And now they have 1,000 producers on their site and they're making, even if it's 10% off for every beat they lease or sell, that person is the smart person. Mm-hmm. You're just another person on the assembly line. Like I never understood that. Like to me, you have to understand the value of music. You understand? Like you see some plaques behind me. Each one of those plaques made millions upon millions of dollars for that label. Right? So what do I look like if I said, you know what, yo, DipSet, just give me $100 a beat, or Def Jam, because I wouldn't even put it on DipSet because they would sign a Def Jam. If I said, yo, Def Jam, just give me $100 a beat. Yeah, I did 11. Give me $1,100. Meanwhile, that album goes on to gross probably $8, $9, $10 million. Like, you understand? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I feel like because I used to manage producers and when that whole wave of like leases came about, it never made sense to me because it was like how does this make sense that 50 maybe 100 people got the same beat?
Think about it like this: when you lease a beat, you're showing the failure rate. Okay, cool. 100 people used it, not one popped. So that means that your beat has a 0% success rate. It's based and it's proven. We can look at the numbers and see that. So why would you do that? Like to me, that makes no sense. And if somebody does get on the record and the record starts winning, do you now have to hit the other 100 people and say, can you take this down off of your site? Because like, how does that work? I never understood that part of it.
No, so certain content I put on YouTube, and it might be I thought it was a free type beat or something like that, just for no copyright issues. They'll flag you now, and they'll show the artist name of whoever, and I sometimes I go to the artist and I'll be like, man, really?
That's what I'm saying to you, man. Like the game is backwards, and honestly, they're flagging you for promoting them, essentially.
Yeah.
You understand? Like the game, it's like when people used to get at bootleggers for bootlegging their stuff. I get the concept because it's costing you money, but they're also giving you free promo. They're out there, rain, sleet, or snow, selling your product. Whether you get the money or not, it's promo. I've never understood how people can be so mad at the bootlegger for essentially promoting your career in other states and other countries. But I mean, I get the concept, but I don't get the concept at the same time. It's
like you said, it's backwards.
I'm never mad if anybody. That's like somebody taking my footage off of internet, off of IG, and reposting it. That would be like me hitting them up, like, "Yo, take that shit down."
Especially if it got crazy views. Yeah, if it got crazy views or got some traction, you should be like, "Yo, leave that up."
Yes, that's what I'm saying to you. It's the same thing.
No, I totally get it. So back in when you started production, you was giving out a lot of beats. You think that's still a good tactic for producers to do now, to still just give out free beats to just see what?
To the right people, man. You don't ever want to give your music to somebody who's just gonna rap to it or sing to it and play it for their friends and not have any type of thought process as how do I promote this? How do I make this bigger than what it is? People like that, to me, you're wasting your music giving it to. But if you see a hungry artist that you see promoting his or herself, whether they're paying for their own videos, paying for their own studio time, promoting their stuff, doing shows, you might want to align with that artist and give them music because they're trying to build something and you can build with them. But a lot of producers come out the gate and they're like, yo, I'm just making up a number. I need $1,000 for every beat I sell. And my response to that is, if somebody knows that you produced a beat, when they put it online, is that going to generate $1,000 back because of your name?
Right.
If not, then you're overcharging.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
You understand? If I can't make my money back based off of your name for what you charge me, then you overcharge me. You understand? Let's just say, I'm making up a number again because I don't know if these are the exact numbers. Let's say 1 million streams brings you $3,500, right? And somebody wants a beat from somebody else and they're like 3,500. Okay, cool. If your name is gonna warrant 1 million streams and I'm gonna make my $3,500 back, then yeah, it's worth the price. You understand? So that would be my advice to a lot of upcoming producers. It's like, charge what you know you can make back for that artist if shit hit the fan. You know what I mean? Like, can a Heatmakerz track bring you 1 million streams? Of course, it's been proven. I did El Capo for Jim. We're at about 130 million streams. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
So when I charge people what I charge them, there's facts behind it and there's numbers behind it. I don't just grab numbers out the sky.
Right, just a random number. I get it.
Right, which a lot of producers and artists do.
Dreamers Welcome Podcast.